Well, it's raining outside. I don't know if you can hear that here in Ecuador. Microphone ready? Okay, most people around the world had no idea of the ideological monstrosities within the Obama administration, which were Hitlerian on the surface, far worse than any links Trump supposedly had with extremist ideology. John Holdren, for example, Obama's science advisor, advocated for all kinds of forced and obligatory abortions and birth control licenses, etc., in his books and in his policies. They decided on fluoride as the way to mass produce infertility. That's why in the United States they put it in the water. That's why in Ecuador they put it in the salt, as does all Latin America. They've even done studies in places like Brazil where they fluoridate the water as a mass prophylactic. They've done studies in Brazil where they find that the local brands of soda actually contain fluoride, and because in Brazil they put it in the water in addition to the salt. And for this reason, so in Brazil, even the drinks they make have fluoride in it, and they've proved this in laboratories. And studies show that fluoride will have the same effect on the brain as lead poisoning. Even in extremely small amounts, it's highly toxic, and it produces infertility. That's been shown. It's poison, pure and simple. They're not using pharmaceutical grade fluoride. They're using industrial waste. It's like the debate about geoengineering. They say, well, you can find aluminum as a mineral in the soil and water. Yeah, but not in free form. Holdren looks at the world. Okay, so John Holdren was Obama's science advisor. He looks at the world and he says the reason for poverty is overpopulation. The reason for poverty is underproduction of all the main things: food, housing, healthcare, transportation. And biodegradable plastics, for example, underproduction of those. Question for Holdren: if you have a bunch of people and you want to give them all hats, there are not enough hats to go around. What do? I say manufacture more hats. Holdren says start cutting off heads. Forced abortions. That's what he advocates for. It's in a book he wrote in the 70s called Eco-Science. He was an obscurantist and a charlatan, by others like Paul Ehrlich, who wrote The Population Bomb. He thought that the population was going to be like a bomb going off in the world. And when you start putting population in those kinds of extreme terms, anything is justifiable. These people are followers of Mathis, of Darwin, Jeremy Bentham, these Fabians and Luciferians of the British Empire. In this administration of fanatics, Holdren was joined by others such as Cass Sunstein. And if Holdren's a fanatic because he wants to give rights to animals, Cass Sunstein is even worse because he wants to give rights to trees, legal rights. He was Obama's regulation advisor. He wrote that people who thought the sun was good for you, didn't believe in global warming, or accepted alternative explanations for September 11th, should be banned, fined, and put in jail. He wrote that in a document that was published in a law magazine called Cognitive Infiltration, where he suggested that government agents infiltrate groups dedicated to independent journalism. And that's all happened, but it's happened through the censorship. Just like he suggested. He suggested putting blips on the screen that saying stuff was fake news. And without the censorship, we wouldn't have had the global health circus of the last 2 years. Cass Sunstein was a pioneer of what's called behaviorist economics. He wants to nudge you or convince you to do certain things. The problem is the nudge is not a friendly nudge. The nudge is going to become a cattle prod, a bayonet, and a machine gun. These people have advocated for fining people for having children. Obama was not able to carry out this Hitlerian agenda, but his Vice President Joe Biden is now operating out of the White House, carrying these policies out in a very overt way, an obvious way. Around this time of Obama, you had one of the Prime Minister of England's aides, I think it was Gordon Brown, who was Prime Minister then, another famous socialist. And you had him and his advisors talking about cutting the population of England by 30 million people. This came out in the Sunday Times. This is the philosophy of Darwin and Malthus. One of Gordon Brown's advisors was so indiscreet as to say they were talking of cutting England's population by 30 million people. That came out in London's principal newspaper at the time, the Sunday Times. That is way more than Hitler could have accomplished. And what it shows again is the anti-human fanaticism, the genocidal fury of the Anglo-American ruling elite, that they hate people and they are determined to exterminate people. They're very smart and very good at what they do, while the rest of the people are dumb. It used to be that the Democratic Party members in the U.S. would say they wanted access to abortion, but as a last resort for people. Now they brag and boast about using abortion to lower the population in the areas and advocating for abortions for both men and women, even though that's not possible. They live in a fantasy land. This is what they say, their words, not mine. A lot of this came out in the Democratic debates during the primaries, 2016. They were bragging about using abortion to lower the population. New laws allow for post-birth abortions, where the babies' heads are cut off after birth and their bodies are put in freezers to be used in products, vaccines, cosmetics, face cream, and pharmaceutical research. They also take the body parts of recently born babies and do this. This is the post-birth abortion, and babies that then live without the body parts that go into the face creams and the vaccines. This is both post-birth abortion, these laws that the Democrats are pushing for. This is the philosophy of sustainable development, anti-growth, and deindustrialization that uses climate change as an excuse to ram through a genocidal agenda. Hitler wanted to get rid of certain groups of people, Jews, homosexuals, gypsies, etc. Obama, the Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister of England, President Joe Biden, the presidents of France, they want to get rid of all people. And they're called moderates and have sensible policies. And it shows you just how detached the world is from knowledge about what is really going on and what the elite really have in mind for them. Geoengineering transhumanism and ramming through an artificial intelligence agenda. That's why they've moved all education online. So the goal is that once you have everything online and there is minimal human interaction, they can use complicated computers and algorithms to predict the future. So any kind of movement the elite want to bring us, they can target it based on people's likes and perceptions and prejudices. And they know what kind of objections are going to come in advance, and they can already have their defense planned. And what we're seeing is a mere reflective reality, because I would argue that these changes were inevitable in a world where people don't care and where people don't choose to educate themselves. A world of stupid people is a world that isn't going to last. For example, if you have a kingdom and the entire kingdom puts its head in the sand, it's inevitable that it's going to be conquered. But the wars that are fought now are information wars, silent weapons for quiet wars. Share this video, help me grow my media empire and free the world.